Hello, hello. April 9th, 2024, first session of 6 for the Astrology in-Depth Psychology program at Hidden Truths College. Thank you all for coming. So I wanted to take a moment to kind of speak to how I foresee the next sessions unfolding, and I'm open to something within that, but I kind of want to set some structure around it. When I started astrology, I studied all the theory, all the book stuff. And I found myself after many months not really knowing anything when I looked at a chart. So I really dove deep into the application, what we call chart interpretation. That's really when you get to know yourself and others. And so that's my invitation for this particular session of astrology, is that we go deep into the application. So whatever it is that you're at in terms of the recordings, if you started, if you're halfway there, if you're done, does not matter. It all kind of melts into the same pot in terms of applying. So that's my focus, is chart interpretation for these live sessions. And I'd like to keep sort of the questions in alignment with that, bring the theory question that you perhaps ask, and then see it in either your chart, a friend's chart, someone else in the class's chart, so that we really can get deep into all of the meanings that a house has, a sign, a cusp, a planet, and just sort of set that as the foundation for these live classes, because the application is where it's at. Obviously, your choice of how you live something out is in your chart, is your level of consciousness and your free will. So that's my thoughts on that. Any comments on that before I continue? Okay. The other thing that I'd like to do is really stick to the elemental basics of astrology. As simple as they are, foundational, knowing that foundational language and understanding of something, then bringing it to the chart and application is where you really get the depth. So I'm going to try to bring in, before the session, sort of the container in which I'd like to channel the chart interpretation, but then leave room for the questions in other areas. So today I'd really like to focus on the concept of the I statements for each sign. So that'll be kind of like the lens. And then, of course, we can work within that and expand. But I'd like to kind of name before each class the vision so that there's some organization around that. Any comments on that? Okay, great. So before we start, we're going to evoke our dear friend Mercury, or Hermes, our trickster god, who is in charge of all of this nonsense. Why? And I'll open sacred space in a moment, but I wanted to speak to him and bring him in. No coincidence, Mercury's retrograde. So here he is doing his damage. The trickster, and there's a great book by this name, The Trickster Runs the World. The reason that the trickster runs the world, the reason that astrology, alchemy, spiritual transformation, and any philosophy is run by the trickster, and it really is the planet for Age of Aquarius, is because this is all a trick and all a game and all a con of how we can get to know ourselves. And we really need to evoke and play and have fun with this trickster god that makes us run around the world, fight, play, create, destroy, get sick, all in attempts to learn who the heck we are and what the hell we're doing here. And so we can get a little bit closer to love of self, of other, the world. So he's going to be our guide on this journey each session. And when you open up your materials to study or read, bring him in, open sacred space and evoke him. He has the caduceus, which is all of the hidden wisdom in the universe. He has winged sandals so that you could distract yourself and think that your path is someone else's or over here, over which way, to get you to be anchored again. He has a helmet so that you can understand and get curious about your mind and your subconscious specifically. And he speaks to so much about what this path is about. And if we only focused on this one archetype, this one god, we would know so much more about ourselves. And he has us running around what seems to be shallow, what seems to be on multiple doors, which seems to be like a game that we just never got the map or the instructions to, but the chart is indeed that. And so if we invite him to take us into the underworld, the depths of ourselves, and he is the only God that is allowed to go up to heaven, Olympus, higher consciousness, and down into the depths of Hades, the depths of ourselves, specifically our shadow selves, and figure it all out here in this playground we call Earth. We'll do right by ourselves and by him, by honoring everything that he brings to our plate. So I'd really just like to invite him in and thank him that, and we did not plan this class during Mercury retrograde. That was not at all what I had looked at when we decided the date. So here we are. And I'm just going to speak to this, even though this may be ahead of your lens at this moment. Mercury, the planet Mercury, has to do with manipulation and covert power and logic and intelligence. And the retrograde, and particularly now in Aries season, has to do with Mars, which is the creator god, which has to do with overt power, perhaps aggression. And really, the magic happens when we find a way to mix both of these, our covert and our overt power, our very aggressive selves and our manipulative, take a backseat selves. So that's what I kind of want to constellate for this group, that we allow that all of our power in all of the ways it shows up in all of the planets, in all of the houses, in all of the signs, the way that we exercise our power dynamic in this world, get clear to each of us. Would anyone like to add anything in terms of an intention for the group? Okay, let's get started on the fun stuff. Okay, I'm going to share the screen. And I'm going to start with the I statements. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
I'm just bringing up Megan's chart just to have an example. But okay, so first let's start with the I statements. Every sign has an I statement. Basic A to Z elementary building blocks of astrology is understanding the statement that each sign has. Why? That is going to be the container in which every single thing that that person has a lived experience, the cusp, the planet, the sign, the house, will channel through it. It's like the container or the tattoo. Imagine being tattooed head to foot with that statement. That is going to be the overriding value and thought that the person or the situation or the placement will move in the world. So let's recap the 12. And this is all in your content. Aries, I am. Taurus, I have. Gemini, I think. Cancer, I feel. Leo, I will. Virgo, no, it's not I judge and criticize. It's I analyze. Libra, I balance. Scorpio, I want. Sagittarius, I aim or seek. Capricorn, I use. Aquarius, I know. And Pisces, I believe. That is the vision that the sign has. So if you're looking at just sun sign astrology, each of you has a sun sign. That statement is how you move in the world. That is the vision in which you incarnate. That same thing is applied with your planets of that sign, the houses that rule, the sign that rules the house, the cusps, that one sentence. If you learn that one sentence, you have so much already accomplished in astrology. because it sets the container in which everything that's happening to that person or that situation is the context in which it's happening. So let's talk a little bit about the sentences, and then we'll go to questions and answer the questions through this lens. Aries. Anyone know an Aries? Unmute yourself so we can have a chat. Okay, yes, your husband's an Aries, Jennifer. Okay, so tell me in one sentence how Stuart lives out I am and what that represents to you. What is I am when you hear those two words about a person, especially your partner? What does that evoke?
Stuart does what Stuart wants to do.
Okay, so give me one word of that. What is it when someone does what they're going to do?
Oh, really? Is that a judgment statement I'm going to make?
No. I want one word
Okay.
so we can contextualize. We're going to do this for each of them.
Independent.
Okay, perfect. Isn't one of the words of Aries on that list of keywords independence?
Yeah.
It is. And so Stuart is being Stuart.
Yeah.
Wherever you have Aries, by sign, by planet, Mars, by cusp, there is going to be an energy of independence. If we go back to our Aries, Gemini, or Mercury and Aries foundation that I mentioned earlier, what power is that? Overt or covert?
Overt.
Overt. Okay. Anyone know a Taurus?
Yes.
Is that Carissa?
Yes.
Okay. Who do you know that's a Taurus?
A good friend of mine who is no longer speaking to me.
Okay, so I have, how does he or she, a sentence or a word or two to describe the person?
She is hard-headed and loves her belongings.
Okay. Are those not words that describe keywords of Taurus? Is that an overt power or a covert power?
Overt, right? No.
It's covert because belongings protect you.
Oh.
It's a form of protection. I'm in power because I'm not letting you get close. Vulnerability is ultimately the greatest power, but if you have things just like weight, Tauruses tend to be heavy, set or put on weight easily. It's because they're trying to protect. So it's a covert power. I'm going to tie this all together, I promise. Gemini. Jen, are you a Gemini or is your ascendant Gemini? I can't remember.
My ascendant is Gemini.
Okay, so Gemini, whether it's a person
I'm
or
a Gemini.
Carissa's a
Carissa's a Gemini. Okay, so a word or two of Gemini.
I don't want to answer for myself.
Anyone know a Gemini?
I observe Carissa and I think about this. I know it's I analyze, but I also notice
No, I think.
Oh, I think. I observe that she's always thinking and watching. She's always watching and thinking.
Okay, so what does it mean when someone says, I think? What is the act of starting a sentence with, I think?
I believe. I think it's this
Not
way.
That's Pisces.
Oh.
I think. We have to stick to the lens and the vision of the sign. I think. What is I think? What energy does that evoke when someone starts a sentence like that?
That they're taking charge, that they know best.
Okay, they know best, they take charge, and that this is the only way.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, overt or covert?
Oh, she's definitely covert.
No, but not her as a whole entity.
Okay.
Go to the lens. You see, get to I think. Is I think an overt power or a covert?
That's an overt power.
That's a very overt statement and an overt power. Perfect. Cancer.
Oh,
Anyone
boy.
know a Cancer?
I know a Cancer.
Do we know
so many?
What was that, Megan?
I know so many. They're all
Okay.
around me.
Okay. And the sentence is I feel. What does that mean in terms of all those cancers that you give
So
me a couple words?
emotional.
I'm sorry,
Emotional,
emotional. What else?
watery.
Okay, that's emotional.
They are very nurturing and caring people. Manipulative.
Okay. So their feeling, is that covert or overt?
Overt.
Yeah.
What was that?
Overt.
I think covert. You think
It's
overt?
covert. It's covert power.
Like
If I feel and I wrap you in with my emotions so much, so I swallow you, I'm actually in control. My emotions might seem out of control, but the manner in which I'm taking power is a covert power mechanism. Leo. Anyone know a Leo or a keyword for a Leo? I will. Not like it's not in the sentence, right? A word or two about Leo.
It's their party.
Okay. So attention.
Center of attention, show off.
Okay. Is that overt or covert?
Over.
Overt.
Overt. Okay, Virgo. I analyze.
Oh boy.
A
I
word
know.
or two about your favorite Virgo, Jen.
They can be very pedantic, very black and white.
Okay. Now, wouldn't that make sense if I analyze is the vision? It has to fit into a box. It has to go into an Excel spreadsheet. You cannot put something in an Excel spreadsheet without saying error, error, if the formula isn't right. So it makes sense that the way they view the world is like an Excel spreadsheet, and everything has that column and everything has a box and everything adds up. Now, is that covert or overt?
Overt.
No.
Oh, it's covert, is it?
If it's black and white, and I'm going to put you in this box or in this box, who's in charge? You and your entirety of who you are, or the person that has the box that they're going to put you in? Think of the power dynamic. I'm going to tie it in a minute to a lot of the stuff in your intro stuff. Is how you take up space in the world. That's a very covert way to take up space in the world. If you call the columns A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, who's in charge? Now, the Leo is, I'm here. They don't care what's going on. It's all about them. The covert is, how do I fit perfectly in the Leo system where I'm really getting the attention, even though they think they have the attention. So the power currency is dictating several things, and I'll get to the basics of astrology in a minute, about how the person moves in the world. And that's why that vision, that sentence is so key. Because you cannot analyze unless someone allows you to analyze them. So the person being analyzed is overt, but the person analyzing has more power in a way. It's covert. Just like Capricorn. You're using, someone has to let you use them. So we have to understand this. This is how people move in the world, and our systems constellate this way. Ourselves, our families, our relationships, the world, situations. And all that houses are the little container situations. And whatever someone has in their house by sign and by planet, they're going to move either overtly or covertly through that vision of that sentence. That's 90% of what's going on in astrology. But we judge these things. Oh, covert's bad, or overt's good, or I analyze is bad, or using is bad. So we miss the entirety of the person and of the chart because we're so busy saying, oh, well, I don't want to say that about this placement. No, it's how you move in this part of your world through this power mechanism so that you can get ultimately what you want. And we have trouble with owning that. So we pull back, we're not honest with ourselves, we're not honest with other people, and that's why we stay so shallow. So hence, he needs winged sandals to give you 500 situations. You could see the same thing 500 times to finally say, well, maybe. Let me go a little deeper. It keeps showing up. So that's why he's the trickster, and he's the one that brings scenarios and all these different versions so that we can say, oh, there's some seed here of these things that weave them together. Let me invite that depth in. I balance Libra. Who knows a Libra?
My
You
sister.
know, yes. We all have Libras.
Okay, Megan, a word or two about your sister.
She needs a lot of validation and attention.
We all know Libras.
Yeah.
Is that overt or covert?
It's hard because I see her as a whole, as an overt person.
But forget her, go to
Yeah.
I balance.
Overt. No,
Overt.
covert. Oh,
No,
overt.
overt. If someone needs attention and validation, they're asking very
different.
clearly, I need this from you. Their behaviors, at least, are forcing you to do that.
Yeah, they are needy.
Needy, okay. Scorpio, I want. Anyone has a Scorpio?
I love Scorpios.
Okay, sentence or two about Scorpios.
They are
I
intense.
wonder how I want and I use get together very well.
We get
Just
Scorpios
curious.
and
I
Capricorn,
mean,
we play very well together.
of course,
We sort of see each other.
if
The
they
Scorpios
want
are-
it and take it, and you can use it and make something of it, you guys are going to be BFFs, my friend.
Definitely. Scorpios, I like
All
what I like.
covert.
What I like about Scorpios is I always feel like I know where I stand with a Scorpio. Even though they're a water sign, they're much more I don't know, they're probably more of a covert energy, but I still feel like it's much clearer what it is they want. They're like not afraid to state what they want, to be very clear about it. So you know where you stand with them.
Like direct people. Are they very direct?
That's it. They're direct.
Okay, so I want is directedness. I'm
Mhm.
hearing direct and clear.
Yes, direct and clear. Intense can be very intense though with it. Like it could still have a lot of intense emotion, but there's a directness and a clarity, even if it's a little intense.
Okay. Would you say that's overt or covert?
Well, that feels overt the way I'm describing it, but I think of all water signs as covert.
It is covert because what's behind the want, what's behind a desire is not clear.
Mm.
The ask appears to be clear, but what's underneath is what they're really after. They don't ask clearly for that.
Okay.
But what you're saying in terms of the way they move in the world and say, I want, right? It seems like they're pointing and saying, give me that. But really what's happening is underneath, there's something else. The real ask is underneath, and you have to kind of, if they let you, poke to get clearer. Okay. Sagittarius, I seek. On your paperwork, it says I aim, but same difference. So what's I seek? What's a Sagittarius?
The travelers, the joy seekers, the fun seekers.
Very free-spirited.
Okay, traveler, joy, fun, free-spirited. So what are they seeking through the travel, through the free spirit, through the joy, through the fun?
Escapism.
Okay. Is it overt or covert?
It's more overt, isn't it?
It's overt escapism.
Yeah, overt escapism.
Okay, so that's overt. Capricorn, like two Capricorns. I use.
Well, Francis, you know some Capricorns. Tell us what you think about Capricorn.
I'm just asking the questions today. Asking and answering. I use.
Jen, do
A
you know
couple
any
words for
Capricorn?
Capricorn.
Jenny know?
I'm sorry?
Jenny, do you know any Capricorns you can speak to?
Denny, is it Margie Capricorn?
Wait, which Jenny? Oh, it's me.
One or
would say-
two words.
They're very in the physical world, feet on the ground, always moving the ball forward. And sometimes the ball is way down the road, but they're already moving it. Very goal oriented.
Okay. Overt or covert?
I think it's a bit covert.
That indeed it is. You're not letting anyone know that you're using them. You're going to frame it in a way that it's for them, not for you. Aquarius, I know. So now we went to Gemini. I think. What's I know?
There's more confidence in that.
Dylan's an Aquarius, and to me, he's just very like, I know that someone else is analytical, or I analyze, but he is very like logically analytical and good at communication and like a humanitarian.
Okay, so logical, analytical, confident, humanitarian.
Mhm.
The
More
Aquarius
spiritual.
I know is very like it's a certainty, but through facts, through scientific facts. It's that sort of detachment from the emotion because there's science, there's logic, there's something to back it up. So science, a very sciencey science. Overt or covert?
Covert.
Overt. And Pisces, I believe.
It can be a little, let's see. Detached from material reality, and emotional, but I always think of the word nebulous, a little nebulous, like a little bit in the ether, even though they're a water sign. So I think of Aquarius and Pisces as both being a little nebulous, kind of in the ether.
Okay, so I believe is detached from reality. And in the ether is another word for Akash, which is the universal consciousness. If your vision of the world is I believe, you don't believe in anything here. You believe in something beyond. You believe in something you can't see. That's what faith and belief is, right? I believe it even though I can't see it. So our vision is what's beyond what I can see. And so if you arrange your placements and the people in your lives with these sentences, now you start to understand why a person is, why they are. Chosen profession, chosen partner, how they move in the world, perhaps what they do for fun. And it organizes everything in 2 words. Now, why do I ask about overt or covert? Besides understanding how the placements are going to play around in the house, why would that matter?
The power currency matters, doesn't it?
Okay. Yes, it matters. Because I said so and I wrote a book about it.
Well, if you understand the power currency of the sign and you're trying to engage in relationships with people, I find it helpful to know that about the person. But then I'm a Capricorn, so obviously I'm
right, and
being like
you need
covert.
to know these things so
I'm
you
kind
can
of
use
covertly,
appropriately.
yeah. I'm managing my relationships probably strategically at all times, in a subconscious way. So therefore, I'm interested in the other person's power currency because I'm going to try to
You're going to
speak their
adapt
language.
to
Yes,
whatever they
exactly.
are so that you could get your utility out of them.
Yeah.
Exactly. The reason, just from an astrological perspective, and I don't know how far each of you are in the content, is the covert and the overt has to do with something called polarity. A sign is either masculine or feminine. All of the ones that you said were overt are masculine. All of the ones that you said were covert are feminine. What does feminine mean? It is either a water sign or an earth sign. If it's overt, it's a fire sign and an air sign. This is the elemental basics of astrology. You know the view in which the person is ruling their life. You know if they're going to be masculine and feminine in their power currency and the way they move forward, which is their polarity. And now you know, I'll see if you do, the opposite sign has to have an opposite polarity. There has to be an opposite to balance it out. So the first 6, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, have an opposing 6. Libra, Scorpio, Sag, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. This makes the pairs. So Aries to Libra. What did we say? I am, I balance. Why would I am and I balance be a pair? So if Stuart is independent, what do we know about Libras to be? What is the overriding thing about this Libra sign?
Needy.
It's not so much needy. They're about groups. They're about public relations. They're about teams. So you've got the Aries I independent to the dependent, and that's not really fair to say dependent, but the interdependent Libra. So wherever you have, or the person that you're speaking to, using these sentences, you have this framework of this vision. Where do you think, let's just use Stuart Aries for a second. If Stuart is independent, Stuart does what Stuart wants, that's his vision. What do you think is happening back here with the Libra, with the I balance? Where does he get, or how does he satisfy? Because you have to satisfy both, it's a scale. How does he satisfy the we to his I, the interdependence to his independence? How does he personally live that out?
He owns a retreat center.
Okay. Yeah. I do what I want at my retreat center, but I do it amongst a group of people. And since the day I've met Stuart and you, Stuart's not ever alone. He's always finding kids off the street to collect. They satisfy his need to balance his I am independence. So if you only look at a person through their sun sign, you're missing a whole part of them that they probably aren't familiar with, because it's something they need to balance. And immediately you see the imbalance. I give too much to myself and not enough to others, or I give way too much to others and not enough to myself. And that is the drama of an Aries Libra. That right there. I am, I balance. And how do I do that? How do I satisfy that? So now, each of you, I'm just going to use Megan for a second. Megan, you're a Capricorn. I use. Dylan is an Aquarius. I know. How do you work out using and knowing?
Mm-hmm. I use what he knows.
Okay. And you use what he knows and you built your empire around that. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why it works for the two of you. And I bet you if I ran your combined chart, it would be something about the work house, the professional house, something where you guys create together, fifth house, because those two sentences bring you together and there's something that constellates with just those two sentences. Okay. So this one thing can be brought out to families, to systems, to work environments. So this is the basic building block. So now you have the vision of the person, the other part that they leave out, but something in their world has to satisfy that other part that's the opposite sign. You have, if it's masculine or feminine, you have their overt or covert power, which has to do with masculine and feminine. And you know whether it's a water, earth sign, or a fire, air sign. All the basics in your intro to basics class, based on 2 words per person. How's that for a framework? So now that we take into the chart, we're not going to do this today, but I'm just going to name it. What you are looking for in a chart is an incongruity, things that don't match up. That's the function of this game we call life. The pieces don't fit, and how do I get them to fit? So when you see, I'm just going to use this as a brief example. Here's a moon in Cancer. So this is covert. I feel in the 11th house of Aquarius, I know overt house. How do you feel and know at the same time? There has to be a conflict there. It has to be. So no matter where you start in the chart, no matter where, find the conflict, find the incongruity. Where is one thing overt? Where is it covert? Where is it masculine? Where is it feminine? Where is it earth and water? And it should be fire and air. The minute you get that seed, the whole thing comes to life. Everything starts to make sense. Because you're going to find it over and over and over. And it's just going to like, oh my God, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. So the moment you find the one incongruity, so I just picked that one up. Hadn't looked at it, just saw it. I feel in the I know house. You think you have some conflict, Megan, with your feelings and trying to name them and put them in a box and understand them and just feel them. But how do you tell that to someone who has it in the 11th house? Oh, just feel your feelings. Don't try to know them and label them and understand them and give them productivity outputs. And so you found a way. You married Moon, love. You married the guy. That's how your soul satisfied that. Because the funny thing about this, it all works out. Just
And he
does.
always wants to talk about my feelings.
Okay, so let's stop here. Any questions about using the statement as the vision for a person's view of life, the way you cannot remove these glasses? Now, do not get caught up in judging that I use and I want and I am is worse than I feel and I think. That's where it goes to hell. Because every one of these statements has a shadow. There's a really good aspect of being super independent. And there's a really negative part too, right? It could be overly prideful, overly aggressive. So don't think because it has a label that it's good or bad. It just is. And invite the entirety of the phrase to show up for you, to develop for you. Read it as just, these are it. They're just it. They're not good or bad. They're just the qualities. When we start saying, well, aggressive is bad and overt and manipulative is bad, that's where we get messed up. It just is. Anything out of balance is going to show. It's going to show up in the chart. It's going to show up in the person's life. So you're going to know what areas are out of balance. But in balance, it all fits. So that's the vision I want you to have now in this next part with your questions. So now we have 20 minutes for questions. Megan, you had a question.
Mm-hmm.
You told me earlier, that's why.
Yeah. I had a question about the cusps and how they influence the house. So I have a Libra cusp in the second house, or Libra rules the second house.
Okay, so first let's just educate what a cusp is for those who may not be at that mod. Every sign or every house has two cusps.
Mhm.
There's one cusp that rules. So this ascendant rules the first house, this rules the second house, and so forth. So it's always to the left. Like this is the eighth. Is that the left? Yeah. Okay. So the left. The energy of the house, whether it has planets in it, whether it looks empty, does not matter. The energy of the house is ruled by the cusp. The cusp is, think of it like the window or the door of how the person is going to move the energy in that part of their life. So first, let's say the second house has to do with money, resources, and self-worth. So the way that you're going to move energy towards your money, towards perhaps the job you're in very perfectly, right? A PR, social media type of thing is Libra run. The way you're going to move your money, maybe to buy things that make your home aesthetically pleasing, Libra things, makeup, that type of stuff. And the way you value yourself is going to be through the veil of I balance, and it's going to be Libra, which is about beauty and aesthetics and so forth. Okay, so we have both things there. Let's go first to the statement. If your money house is ruled by Libra, I balance, how are you going to use your money?
To balance things in my life, to
Could be
balance
to
the
seek balance.
internal, external, because I
Okay.
do use money to balance my inner scarcity.
Okay, and how else? You have
Uh,
money. How are you going to move in the world? Let's say in sharing that.
mm, um, I feel like I am generous with it.
Okay. Because if
So
you have
balancing.
something you probably want to share, right? Let
Yeah.
everybody let everybody get a piece of the pie in the playground. I'm going
Mm,
to take my piece. I'm a Capricorn, so I might take an extra big piece, but
mm.
I'll share with the rest of you, right? That could be a way that the cusp plays itself out. What type of a Libra, what type of job would you do to make money?
Um, well, I am making it through social media
Okay.
and
So you have,
marketing.
okay. And that's a profession. Marketing is a profession of Libra, right?
Mm,
So the cusp, again, forget, she doesn't happen to have any planets in there, but don't get overwhelmed with the planets and everything. Just we're going to the cusp. The cusp is the door, the window, and how the person is going to move into the world in that area of their life. Now, my next question is, how will you feel when you're in balance? I balance through the second house. What things do you need to feel balanced?
material possessions.
Yes, ma'am. And
Okay,
self-worth.
do that.
And self-worth. Okay,
Mm,
so you're going to feel balanced when you do acts of self-worth,
mm,
because second house is worth, the way I value system, my value systems, how I value myself and others, how I value my money. And that is what you're seeking in your life for balance. And you said it, a material, financial, but also that money pay for experiences or opportunities for me to find balance.
mm.
So the cusp is the doorway in which the person says, this part of my life, that's how I'm going to move into it.
Mm.
Does that help?
Yes. The one house that I like struggle to interpret for anyone is the 12th house, because like the second house is easy to say, like finances, material possessions, but the 12th house, what is that about?
Okay, and it should be difficult.
Okay.
So energetically, you're in the right waters. The 12th house, in a nutshell, first of all, is a house of undoing. But first, let's go back to our statements. What sign rules the 12th house?
Pisces.
What is the sign of Pisces?
Sign of
I mean, what's
Pisces.
the statement of Pisces? I'm sorry.
I believe.
I believe. So no matter what you see, no matter what's in there, no matter what's not in there, none of it matters. I'm being exaggerated for a moment because you just have to believe. And so for a Capricorn, how can I use something I can't see? How do I use something that I have to just believe in? There's going to be some conflict in understanding anyone's 12th house, especially your own. So when you place the statement, forget what you have there. You have Leo, which adds another layer, but just saying, I believe, it would be difficult to grasp anything that's in the 12th house for any of us. It's the bottom of the ocean where there's dead bodies and gold, buried treasure. It's something ungraspable. The container of the 12th is called the undoing, where everything just fits. Everything is one. We're all together. You have no differentiation from me. Who can understand that? Well, a Pisces, very much so. No one else. We love that house because that's our house. I don't see you different than me. I'm not different than you. So that's our domain. But it's going to be difficult if an I use has to understand an I believe. I don't know how to use an I believe. Right? It doesn't make sense. I need some tangibility. And I believe is like, I can't see it, taste it, touch it, feel it. I just have to believe it. So it's going to make sense that that's going to be a confusing house. And nebulous, Jennifer used earlier, confusion, undoing. It's the pot where all of the vegetables and everything that was put in substance fell apart into one, and it's just a liquid. You don't know what's a carrot, what's a potato. It just tastes delicious, but you don't know what you're eating. So that's very difficult for someone that's not a Pisces or isn't very watery. They don't feel safe there. They don't feel contained. So now add to that you have a very strong placement in there. Your wounding, your rejection, your abandonment, your orphan. And you're supposed to what with that? I want to meet her, Francis. What do you mean I have to believe? And this is the planet of I analyze because this rules Virgo. So how do you analyze something that you have to believe in? How do you use something you have to believe in? You see how the statement just kind of gives you, it understands that there's a incongruence, that it's going to be very difficult for you to grasp that part of yourself. Does that help?
Yes. Well, I mean, I still don't know, but I get
Yes,
that that's
yes. We'll get there or not, and you might just have to believe, but that's for another class. Any other questions? We've got a few minutes.
Just on the 12th house topic, I just think of the incongruency that, like, for instance, Stuart has got a bucket chart where everything's in the 12th house, and he's that Aries. He's also like fire and air, but everything's in the 12th house, and it kind of gives that it gives this layer. I don't know. It gives this whole sort of.
I don't have his chart in this. I just transferred the computer, so that chart's on my other program. I'll get it for next time.
Okay, no worries.
But let's use yours.
Yeah, I've got a bucket chart too.
So here is, forget this arrow, that's Vulcan. We're not doing that. You've got Mercury. So here's the cusp. It's very, very light. The cusp of Jennifer's 12th house is Sagittarius. What's the I statement for Sagittarius?
I seek.
I seek. And it's the 12th house of I believe. So Sagittarius and Pisces are both escape artists.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm seeking, that means I'm never satisfied. If I'm seeking, it's always over there. Right? And if I believe, I never have to pay attention to the earthly matters, like you said, detached from reality. So in the depths of your unconscious, in the depths of your psyche, there's an escape artist, there's someone who is constantly seeking in an attempt to believe in something. Well, belief is just belief. It's not about seeking. It's about saying, okay, I just believe it, right? So you could see that there's an overlap in the commonality because the old ruler of Pisces was Jupiter. They used to share the same ruler. So yes, you have a double whammy there, but really the seeking is the antithesis to believing. Belief is belief. I just believe it. And if I have to constantly seek it, it's because I don't believe it. There's the incongruence. Then add to that you have the ruler of Gemini. What's the statement for Gemini? I think. So now you seek because you don't believe and you have to think about believing. You can't believe if you're thinking, because thinking is a logic thing. And you also have another incongruity, because if this is an overt sign, Gemini, in a covert sign of Pisces, another incongruity. Which is it? Is it logic? Is it spirit? Do I believe or do I have to think about believing? Do I have to seek or do I believe because I believe? Make sense?
Yeah, oh yeah. It definitely resonates too.
So the 12th house, just so you know, the 12th house is almost impossible to understand without an other. So in spirituality, there is no other. And why is that one of my statements? There is no other because I am a Pisces. And I know the 12th house that none of this, you're not different from me and I'm not different from you. So the 12th house, the vision of Pisces, the vision of the 12th house, which is all undoing, it all fits into the soup. And I don't need to know what I'm eating. I just know it's all one, is difficult for a placement that wants to think. It's a logic. I need organization. That's the old ruler of Virgo. I analyze. So you want to think and analyze your spirituality to death. There's no belief. That's what's missing. That's the function of the placement, is so that Mercury can give you runaround until you realize that you don't need to open a retreat center. You have the answers with you, Dorothy, all the time. And that's why the runaround. It's like, oh, and so in the concept of the 12th house, of there is no other, similar to the 7th house, but really in the 12th house. The 12th house, whatever we have in there by cusp, by sign, by planet, rarely can we see that in ourselves. It is so subconscious. It is such a shadow aspect of oneself, even if you're looking at the chart. Just by looking at your Mercury, Megan, at your Chiron, you have to experience it in the other and go, oh, I do that. Oh, that's what I don't like about myself. Oh, and you need the other, the non-existent other, they're just a projection, to bring in that aspect of yourself. The 12th house is notorious for that. So anybody that has planets in the 12th, and even I don't have any planets, but I have Scorpio. So I have to look continuously at that. I want. 90% of what I write is about I want, desire. Because I have to understand that part of myself through others. The 7th house is similar, but it's not as hidden. The 7th house by cusp primarily. When I say the house, I'm really talking about the cusp. Everything that's in it is just playing a part in the same thing. It's just added, but it's already stated by the cusp. So if the 7th house here is ruled by Cancer, I feel that's how you're going to understand your first house. I use. And so it's not as covert as the 12th house because Libra is an overt sign, but you need the other to show you how you feel. So you see that very particularly in the 12th. That's 99.999, to not say 100%. You will not get there on your own. You need others to show you that. The 7th is also, that's why it's relationships. Other people mirror for me, myself. My I am is mirrored by the others I balance. So that's the scales of justice. A little bit of overt, a little bit of covert, a little bit of aggressive or assertive, a little bit of pull back, be passive, a little bit of asking for what I want, a little bit of I gotta take a step back, a little bit of pride, a little bit of humility. And you need the 7th house, particularly by cusp, to understand how to balance your overemphasized first house, I am.
Mhm.
But the 12th house, I'm just going to say 100% of us, we cannot get there alone. We need others to show us how we are that. So if you're attracted to past lives, the 12th house holds them. And you can get past life readings. I do them. But just looking at what you have in the 12th tells you. Because that's the stuff that you didn't resolve. And you need to resolve in this one through others. And that is the key to love. The loving the world is what's found in your 12th.
So you just gave me homework.
Francis, I have a technical question here. So
Yes.
Jen's chart is Gemini ruling both her 5th and 6th house because she has cusps. Is that
Yes,
possible?
so this is called, yes. So her 5th house cusp is Gemini, and her 6th house cusp is Gemini. This
Okay.
is called an intercept. I'll show you something so you can see it clearly in a minute. An intercept is when 2 houses are ruled by the same sign. First of all, if you need 2 doors for the same sign, you think it might be something important in someone's psyche, it's Gemini. What's the sign of Gemini? What's the sentence of Gemini?
I think.
Think. So I need to think and I need to overthink. 1. 2, what planet rules Gemini?
I don't know.
Mercury. And her Mercury's in her 12th. So she needs 2 doors to overthink. But the thinking planet is at the bottom of the ocean that she has no clue what she thinks. And she needs other people to mirror for her, 12th house, what she thinks.
That's me.
So that's intercept. That's part 1 of intercepts. Second, there's going to be a trapped energy, because if you have double cusps of 1, you mean that there's 2 cusps that don't exist. So let me show you in me. So here's Gemini. So here's her trapped energy, Pisces and Virgo. You see how Pisces and Virgo don't have a cusp?
Yeah.
There's no way for her, there's no door for her to open to let out her Pisces energy, her I believe energy, and her I analyze energy. And take a guess, what signs are her 2 best friends?
Oh,
Pisces.
yeah.
Pisces and Virgo, my friends. You think? And we are so intense. Because as intense as Sabrina is in the earthly, I am as intense in the spiritual.
Wow.
Because we're going to beat this out of her somehow. And so when you don't have a door, you don't have a cusp for the energy to flow, imagine if the seed is underneath and it can't bust out to blossom, what happens? It gets stuck there. It's like rotting. It's like a pimple. And you need someone to come and poke so that maybe you let the flower blossom or the pus come out. So a trap sign with no intercept, with no cusp, A is from a past life, unfinished business. And this one's in the 8th and this one's in the 2nd. This axis is going to be very, very important. And what is the 2-8 axis? Money, wealth, values, resources, my money, my resources, your resources. Doesn't like to use other people's resources? Yes. So no matter which way you skin the cat with the chart, if you start with the sentence, you find the incongruity, you start to see, oh my God, this is how everything in this person is. So this tends to happen with people that are born up north. That's usually where you see the intercepts. I've seen some what's the exceptions, but for the most part, you see that. I think Stuart has intercepts too. So these are places where the person has to work extra hard to forge a door, to forge a path for that energy to flow with fluidity. So it tends to be stuck. And so you can look at illness, could be stuck energy. The feet, Pisces, the intestines, Virgo. You can look at it like that too. Okay, we'll stop here.
Amazing.
How's that?
Francis, that was so good.
That was so good.
Okay, so I don't know until before how I'm going to frame it, but I want to give you those lenses. At the end of the day, no matter which lens you decide to look at the chart with, it's going to lead to the same. But I just want to narrow in the basic concepts so that you have, like a funnel so that it doesn't become too overwhelming. So I'm just going to close up the space. Thank you, Hermes, all of the trickster archetypes. Thank you for showing us how we waste our energy, how we go around just at the shallow surface level. And thank you for showing us how to go deep and in community, meeting all versions of ourselves so that we can make amazing relationships along the way and learn some pretty cool stuff. Thank you all.
Francis, can you and Megan hang back for a second when you stop the recording?
Yes.
You have 2 seconds. Okay.
Yeah.